In today's video, we're testing heaps of more Mac games on Apple M1. On screen are the two M1 Macs that we are using for this video. Please note, all games are running at 1080p resolution. Our first game is Divinity: Original Sin 2, a fantastic RPG on Mac. 2 days ago, the game was updated on the Mac App Store with Rosetta support for M1 based machines. So it runs great at 1080p high settings with 60 FPS on average. If you own the game on Steam or plan on buying it on that platform, please note it has not been updated for Rosetta 2 yet. However, there is a workaround to launch the game using Terminal. I've linked a tutorial that I put together in the description. Elvorels, who work with Lorian Studios, also want you guys to know that Baldur's Gate 3 with official M1 support is coming very soon, so stay tuned. Crossover lets you run many Microsoft applications on your Mac without Windows emulation. As most of you know, Boot Camp is not supported on Apple M1, and virtual software such as Parallels is not supported yet either. Recently, the creators of the crossover software, Code Weavers, updated the software with Apple M1 support. This means you can run some Windows games on your Apple M1 Mac. Keep in mind though that it only works with 2D games, very low-end games, or old games. Rocket League can play at high settings and get 60 FPS on average, but as you can obviously see, it has visual artifacts everywhere, no matter what settings I choose either. Half-Life, which is a really old game, sees pretty bad performance. There is still a lot of work to be done with optimization here, but it's still very promising. Black Ops 3 is the only Call of Duty on Mac today. All the rest were 32-bit and were sadly removed from the platform 2 years ago. Despite being 5 years old, Black Ops 3 holds up in the graphics department and is packed with content, a campaign, a zombies mode, a multiplayer mode, and Steam Workshop support. The performance here is mixed though. You see, Black Ops 3 requires an AMD graphics card, which Apple M1 Macs don't have. Yet, the game still runs. At high settings, we are seeing 20 to 40 FPS. On medium, 40 to 60 FPS, so more manageable. For some reason, the game is unable to maintain a steady frame rate, no matter what quality preset you're at. The game is unplayable on Intel Macs with integrated graphics chips, so we're still doing better. If Aspire optimizes the game for Rosetta 2 or official M1 support, I bet this game will perform significantly better. Please note, Black Ops 3 on Mac doesn't support cross-platform multiplayer, which sucks, and controller support is not working right now on M1 Macs. One of my favorite racing games on Mac is F1 2017. It is the latest game in the franchise available for Mac, but it's still just as fun and good looking. Plus, it was one of the first games to support the Metal framework back in mid-2017. It had great performance on Intel Macs with dedicated graphics. So what's it like on Macs with an M1 graphics chip? Well, we tested the game on a M1 Mac Mini and the 13-inch MacBook Pro M1. Even with 16 GB of RAM on the Mac Mini, performance is very similar. At the very high quality preset, the Mac Mini sees 30 FPS on average, while the MacBook Pro sees 31. On medium quality, that changes to 41 FPS on the Mac Mini and 48 FPS on the MacBook Pro. What we found is that the RAM upgrade doesn't really make much difference for gaming performance. Everything is just a bit speedier. Bugsnax is one of the quirkiest and creative games that I've seen in 2020. People often joke about it being a high-end game because it's a PS5 launch title, but really, its requirements are quite low. So the game performed really well for me at high settings and 60 FPS on average. However, it randomly crashed to the desktop and would not launch again. I tried verifying the game files. I tried deleting and reinstalling. I tried opening it with terminal. All of this was unsuccessful. What a shame. It has OpenGL support on Mac, so maybe that could be the problem. You guys wanted to see more iOS games on M1 Macs, so here are some. I didn't note in the previous video that not every iOS game or app is available on Mac. For example, Genshin Impact or Call of Duty Mobile. They're not there. It's up to the developer to bring them to the platform. The more that I play these iOS games on Mac, the more I realize that I strongly dislike how you can't make the apps full screen or even resize them. They open in such a small window that it can be incredibly difficult to see the menu UI in games or just to see what you're doing in general. So Apple, please address that. You don't have to make the games 16:9, just make them so we can resize them or make them full screen. Also, if a game has controller support or keyboard support on iOS, the good news is that this is brought to the Mac. For example, one of my most played iOS games, Sky, Children of the Light, it has controller support. Same with the puzzler, The Witness. I also tried Dragon Raja, which doesn't have controller support, and you have to use the on-screen buttons with your mouse. So I would say don't bother downloading this game just yet. Look, Apple really need to better curate what games are ported, as the majority of them are just not ready for Mac. Almost all of the LEGO games are ported to Mac. LEGO DC Supervillains is the newest one. You might not think it, but for a LEGO game it has impressive visuals, especially during cutscenes. Anyway, what's weird is that the game ran better at high settings compared to low. Also, Feral Interactive, please port the new LEGO Star Wars to Mac. Please. So many of you requested for me to test this game. Well, it works fine, which should be no surprise as the game is very old. It does have OpenGL support, so I was a little bit scared that it wouldn't launch, but it did. I didn't test any strategy games in my first episode because I was stupid, so here is Troy. Again, we're testing it on a Mac Mini and a 13-inch MacBook Pro. At the high preset, we're seeing 32.2 FPS on the Mac Mini, 32.3 FPS on the MacBook Pro. On medium, 46.9 FPS on Mac Mini and 49.9 FPS on MacBook Pro. So again, not a major difference at all. To get this to run on an Intel Mac, for the best experience, you would need an iMac or 15 or 16-inch MacBook Pro. So that should give you an example of how powerful these chips can be in a low-end machine. Ziggurat 2 is an amazing, fast-paced, magical FPS that hardly anyone knows exists. You'll be casting spells like in Harry Potter. Turn to page 394. And you'll use powerful weapons. The game has no problems on Apple M1, playing at high settings and getting 60 FPS on average. Okay, yes, graphically it's not next-gen level, but it can have so many on-screen effects and enemies at once, and yet the game always is locked at 60 frames. Plus, it's an OpenGL 2 game, and is in early access as well. Clap, clap, clap. Please check out this one if you haven't already, because, man, it's good. Okay, I really wanted to try Mafia 3 because I love this game, but it doesn't work. I tried the Steam version, didn't work. I tried the Mac App Store version, didn't work. I tried verifying the game files, didn't work. I tried reinstalling, didn't work. I tried opening with terminal, didn't work. This is a Metal API supported game, so by all accounts it should work. Aspire just need to send out an update. This was the most requested game to try in this episode. I'm really sorry that I forgot about it in the last one, I did. League of Legends supports the Metal API, if you didn't know, and it runs incredibly well on Apple M1, which should be no surprise as well, it's quite an old game. It gets 80 to 100 FPS on high settings, and over 100 on medium. Cool. A few days ago, Aspire Media ported the 2016 simulation game Planet Coaster to Mac. I don't know about the Windows PC version, but on an Intel Mac this game is very demanding. You need an AMD Radeon R9 M290 to run it well. So, how does it fare on an Apple M1 Mac? Well, on the low quality preset it hits 60 FPS. Medium 30 FPS, and high about 20 FPS. So performance is just okay, but yeah, it's playable here on these low-end M1 Macs. I also noticed the game makes our 13-inch MacBook Pro incredibly hot. No other game has this issue, so that could be a contributing factor to the frame rate dropping. Most people forget that the first Hitman is available on Mac. It's such a good stealth action game. While it looks fairly advanced graphically, it's actually not a very demanding game. In fact, it's supported on a number of Macs back to 2013. That said, to play at a high quality preset with a high frame rate, you will need at least a 2GB graphics card on an Intel Mac. The game did give us a warning that it is not supported on macOS Big Sur, yet it worked for us. On our M1 MacBook Pro, we're seeing 40 FPS on average at the high preset. And changing it to medium cranks that up to about 50 FPS on average. It's not bad, but I would have liked the performance to be just a little bit better here. Hopefully Feral optimized the game with official M1 support or just Rosetta 2 support. Also, there is a free demo on Hitman for Steam if you're interested. Warhammer 2 is another fantastic strategy game by Feral Interactive. Based on my experience playing this game on a large range of high-end and low-end Macs over the years, it's actually more demanding than a Total War Saga Troy. On a 13-inch MacBook Pro M1, we're seeing 27.4 FPS on high, then 36.3 on medium, and finally 48.9 on low. Thankfully, we didn't notice this game getting thermal throttling like Planet Coaster, so that's good. Out of all the high-end games on Apple Arcade, we're talking The Pathless, Oceanhorn 2, Spider, Hot Lava, Beyond a Still Sky, Beyond Blue, Samuri Jack performs the best on Apple M1. On both our MacBook Pro and Mac Mini, the game can play at high and sees an average FPS of 60. If you're looking for a good console-type game on Apple Arcade, be sure to check this one out. It's terrific. Please note, unfortunately, at this time, Samuri Jack has issues with iCloud backup on Apple Silicon. For reference, I could not play my iCloud saves, I had to make a new game for this video, but my colleague, Chandler, he was able to go into his iCloud save, so it's just dependent on different situations. I don't know, man. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. This is my favorite game that I've played so far this year. I'm a sucker for trippy puzzle games, and this is by far the best I've played since Portal. Not everyone may have that same mindset, that's just me. Superliminal runs without any issues at high settings, and again, supports OpenGL. Don't skip this one, as it's very underrated. I'm quite disappointed with Starcraft 2, as it's running quite badly on Apple M1 right now, even with Metal support. At high settings, it gets around 20 FPS on average. What the heck? That should not be happening. Lowering settings to medium, you can then hit 60 FPS. Blizzard just updated World of Warcraft for Apple M1, so I imagine they will do the same with Starcraft 2 soon. Please. In 2020, Playdead ported adventure game Inside to Mac. This game has been out on mobile for a few years, so as you'd expect, Playdead are familiar with these types of graphic chipsets. And yeah, it's very well optimized for Apple M1, as you can see on screen. Please note, the game defaults to 30 FPS for some reason, so go into Settings and enable 60 FPS. The gameplay here is simple, but really satisfying. It's visually pleasing, and the story is beautiful and terrifying too. Desperados 3 was already very well optimized for low-end Intel Macs, but it's even better on Apple M1. We can play at high and get 60 FPS on average. Nice! In fact, the developer released this game a few months late on Mac in order to optimize it for low-end Mac machines. Their work is much appreciated. So, what do you think of Apple M1 so far, in terms of gaming? Impressed or disappointed? In my opinion, the Apple M1 chip is very strong for a low-end Mac machine, and is a significant step forward for Mac gaming. No longer does it have to be a total embarrassment. That said, at the end of the day, it's up to the developers if they want to work with this new hardware. Anyway, I think this will be my last video on testing games on Apple M1 until games are updated for Rosetta 2 or official Apple M1 support. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe and turn on notifications to stay up to date with everything Apple gaming related. My name's Stewie and thanks for watching. These videos are doing really well and thank you so much.